The thunder of the marshal's fist on her door shattered the calm of Naomi Foster's morning. In that instant, everything she'd built in the quiet town of Willow Creek began to crumble. Spring sunlight streamed through the windows of her small dress shop, glinting off the neat rows of ribbons and fabric bolts she'd arranged just the day before. She had no way of knowing that by sunset, her name would be dragged through the dust and her life would never be the same again. "Miss Foster, open up in the name of the law!" The marshal's voice boomed through the door, sharp and commanding. Naomi's hands trembled, and the scissors she'd been holding clattered to the floor. She smoothed her dark blue skirt, took a steadying breath, and opened the door. Marshal Dawson stood there with a grim face, and a crowd of townsfolk gathered behind him. Mrs. Hargrove, the banker's wife, clutched her shawl as if righteousness alone could keep the wind off her. "Marshal," Naomi greeted, trying to hide her confusion. "What brings you here?" "I think you know well enough, Miss Foster," he replied. His eyes, once kind when ordering shirts for his wife, were cold now. "You're to come with me to answer questions about the missing funds from the Founders' Day Committee." "Missing funds?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. $500 gone," Mrs. Hargrove called out, "and you were the last one with the key." "That's impossible," Naomi said, her throat tightening. "I returned the key to Mr. Pullman the same afternoon I counted the donations." The marshal's expression hardened. "That's not what Mr. Pullman says. He claims you kept it an extra day, and now the money's gone." Naomi's legs nearly gave out beneath her. The accusation hit harder than any bullet. For 3 years, she had worked to build her shop and earn the respect of Willow Creek. Now, in one morning, it was being torn apart by whispers. Inside the marshal's office later that day, Naomi listened as her world unraveled. Mr. Pullman, the town's most powerful merchant, presented a ledger he claimed proved discrepancies in her handwriting. Mrs. Hargrove swore she saw Naomi leaving the bank after hours. Even Reverend Collins, with a heavy heart, suggested she might have borrowed the money, intending to replace it. Naomi felt herself shrinking with every word. These were people she'd made dresses for, people who'd shared coffee with her after church. Now, they couldn't even meet her eyes. "I have never stolen a thing in my life," she said firmly, her voice cracking with restrained emotion. Marshal Dawson sighed and leaned back in his chair. "You're free to go for now, Miss Foster. But don't leave town. We'll sort this out." Sorting it out, as Naomi soon learned, meant being left alone with the stares and the whispers. By week's end, her once busy shop was empty. People crossed the street when she passed. Children were pulled inside when she walked by. The word thief floated through the air wherever she went. She kept her head high, even when her hands shook as she closed the shop each night. The nights were worst. That was when doubt crept in, not about her innocence, but about whether the truth even mattered anymore. 10 days after the marshal's visit, a softer knock sounded on her door. Naomi, expecting another insult painted across her porch, hesitated. "Shop's closed," she called through the door. A calm voice answered. "Not looking for a shirt, ma'am. Name's Owen Reed. Heard you might be in need of someone who's good at finding truth in hard places." She frowned. "I didn't ask for help." "No, ma'am," he said. "But I heard a woman's being called a liar by men who don't have much proof. That got my attention." Naomi cracked open the door. He stood tall, with sun-browned skin, blue eyes, and a quiet steadiness about him. Dust covered his boots and trail-worn coat, yet his posture was respectful. "I can't pay you," she said. "I'm not asking for payment," he replied, removing his hat. "Just want to see justice done." Something in his voice, plain, honest, made her pause. She stepped aside. "Come in then, but helping me won't make you any friends in this town." He smiled slightly. "Never been much good at making friends anyway." Quote. Inside, Owen listened carefully as Naomi told her story, the key, the ledger, the accusations. He didn't interrupt, didn't look doubtful like everyone else had. When she finished, she realized she'd been holding her breath. "Doesn't make sense," Owen said, rubbing his chin. "If money's gone and you didn't take it, then someone else did, and it was easier to pin it on you." Naomi frowned. "You think someone framed me?" I've seen powerful men do worse to protect their names, Owen said quietly. Tell me about this Pullman fellow. Naomi hesitated. Respected, wealthy. He runs the mercantile. He helped found this town. Everyone listens to him. Figures, Owen muttered. The kind of man no one questions. He stood, setting his hat back on. I'll start asking questions of my own. Might take time. What will you do? She asked nervously. Just listen. People talk when they think no one's judging them. He walked to the door, then turned. One more thing, Miss Foster. Lock your door at night. When folks start believing lies, they sometimes try to make those lies real. Quote, Naomi's heart fluttered with unease as she bolted the door after he left. The words, "make those lies real," echoed in her mind. The next morning, her fears came true. Painted across her shop door in red letters was one word. Thief. Her hands trembled as she scrubbed it away, fighting back tears. No one helped her. Not until a kind voice said softly, "You shouldn't have to clean that alone." Dr. Parker stood behind her, sleeves rolled up. "Let them talk," he said, taking the rag from her hands. People in this town forget too easily that gossip ruins good souls. When they finished, he gave her a tired smile. Be careful, Naomi. The truth always finds a way out, but sometimes it takes the long road. That evening, the bell above her door jingled again. Owen Reed stood there, dustier than before, a small cut above his brow. You've been busy, Naomi said quietly. Had a few conversations, he replied. Not all friendly. She fetched a clean cloth and gently dabbed at his wound. What did you find? Owen met her gaze. Pullman's son has gambling debts in Silver Creek, big ones, and he left town the same week the money vanished. Naomi froze. You think James Pullman took it? Quote, I think his father's protecting him, Owen said simply, and you're the one paying the price. As the realization hit, Naomi felt her knees weaken. Owen reached out, steadying her. Don't lose hope, Miss Foster. We'll prove the truth yet. Outside, the last light of day faded over Willow Creek. Inside the small dress shop, for the first time in weeks, Naomi felt something she'd nearly forgotten. Hope. The night wind rustled through the cottonwoods behind Naomi's shop, whispering secrets through the leaves as she lay awake. She couldn't stop replaying Owen's words in her mind. Pullman's son has gambling debts, and you're paying the price. The thought chilled her more than the cold creeping through the cracks in her window. At dawn, she rose and poured herself a cup of coffee that had gone bitter overnight. Her shop, once filled with laughter and conversation, now echoed with silence. Only the steady tick of the wall clock reminded her the time was still moving. When the bell above her door finally chimed that afternoon, her heart jumped. Owen Reed stepped inside, dust on his boots and determination in his eyes. Morning, Miss Foster, he said, removing his hat. You've found something, she guessed. He nodded and set a folded paper on her counter. I've been talking to the bank clerk. Seems Pullman's finances aren't what everyone thinks. He's deep in railroad investments that aren't paying off. He's losing money faster than he can hide it. Naomi frowned. So he blamed me for the missing funds to cover up his own problems. Could be, Owen said. But there's more. The clerk confirmed Pullman's son came back to town the night before the money disappeared. Stayed less than a day, then took a coach west with a heavy satchel. Naomi's pulse quickened. The money. That's my guess, Owen said. But we'll need proof strong enough that even the marshal can't ignore it. Naomi walked to the window, watching townsfolk pass by. The same people who once smiled at her now turned away. I can't stand another week of this, she said softly. I can't live like a ghost in my own town. Owen stepped closer, his voice steady and low. You won't. I've got a plan. She turned to him, wary but hopeful. What kind of plan? He hesitated before answering. Pullman keeps his ledgers in the back office of his mercantile. If we can get a look at them, there might be an entry showing where that money went. Naomi's eyes widened. You mean to break in? Not exactly, he said with a faint smile. You'll distract him. I'll do the looking. Her heart pounded. Distract him how? You're a dressmaker, aren't you? Owen said, amusement flickering in his eyes. Tell him you've received a rare piece of fabric his wife might like. Offer it to her before anyone else. He won't be able to resist bragging to her about it." Naomi shook her head. "If we're caught." "We won't be," he interrupted gently. "But if we do nothing, Pullman wins. He ruins your life, and he gets away with it." She looked into his eyes, seeing no hesitation there, only quiet resolve. "All right," she said finally, "I'll do it." Quote, the next evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Naomi approached Pullman's Mercantile with a bundle wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a bolt of rich burgundy silk, the last fine fabric she owned. She clutched it tightly as she stepped inside. Pullman looked up from counting his register. "We're closed, Miss Foster," he said coldly. "I'm sorry for disturbing you, Mr. Pullman," Naomi said with forced warmth. "But I've just received something I thought Mrs. Pullman might like to see immediately." He frowned, curiosity battling with suspicion. "And what might that be?" She unwrapped the parcel and spread the fabric across the counter. The lamplight caught its sheen, deep and luxurious. Burgundy silk from San Francisco, only enough for one gown. Pullman's eyes softened with greed. "Exquisite!" he murmured, brushing the fabric between his fingers. "I thought Mrs. Pullman might want it for the Founders' Day celebration," Naomi said smoothly, glancing toward the back door where Owen was waiting in the shadows. "She deserves the finest." Quote. Pullman nodded absently, fully distracted now. "Indeed she does. How much are you asking?" Naomi named a modest price. As he calculated, she saw movement behind him, Owen slipping into the back office. Her heart pounded so hard, she thought Pullman might hear it. "Perhaps I should fetch my wife," Pullman mused, straightening. "That's an excellent idea," Naomi said quickly, keeping her voice calm. "But before you go, look how it catches the light near the window." She lifted the fabric, leading him toward the front of the store. While he admired the color, Owen searched through ledgers in the back, his movements swift and silent. Naomi forced herself to keep talking, describing possible designs for Mrs. Pullman's new gown, smiling even as her palms grew slick with fear. At last, she saw a shadow move across the far wall, Owen leaving through the rear door. Relief nearly made her knees buckle. Naomi folded the fabric carefully. "I'll bring it to your home tomorrow for Mrs. Pullman to see," she said politely. "Very well," Pullman said, distracted by thoughts of his wife's reaction. "Good evening, Miss Foster." Outside, Naomi hurried to the alley behind Dr. Parker's office where Owen was waiting. He stepped from the shadows, holding a folded paper. "Did you find anything?" she whispered. He handed her the note. "More than I expected." Pullman's private ledger. "There's an entry here dated the day before the money disappeared. Loan to JP for Western investment, $500. Naomi stared. JP, James Pullman. He recorded it himself. Owen nodded grimly, and the next entry says insurance claim filed for stolen funds. He blamed you and planned to collect money on top of it. Her breath caught. He not only framed me, he committed fraud. Exactly, Owen said. Tomorrow we take this to Marshall Dawson. But there's more. I found letters from the railroad company. Pullman's bankrupt Naomi. He needed that insurance payout to save himself. Naomi's hands trembled as she looked at the copied ledger entry. A desperate man willing to ruin someone else's life. Desperate and dangerous, Owen said softly. Stay inside tonight, lock your doors. Quote. The next morning, Naomi stood beside Owen in the marshal's office as they laid out the evidence. Marshal Dawson's expression shifted from doubt to disbelief as he read. These are serious accusations, he said finally, but this evidence is strong. I'll question Pullman myself. He'll deny it, Naomi warned. Then the insurance company investigator can have a look, the marshal replied. If this checks out, he's facing fraud charges. As they stepped outside into the golden morning light, Naomi turned to Owen. What if he fights back? What if he comes after us? Then he'll find me waiting, Owen said simply. His tone was quiet but fierce, and for the first time since the accusations began, Naomi felt safe. They walked down Main Street together. The townsfolk who had once turned away now watched curiously from porches and windows. Whispers followed them again, But this time, Naomi didn't lower her head. She had the truth on her side, and Owen Reed walking beside her. He stopped at the corner and looked at her, his voice softer now. "Whatever happens next, I won't let you face it alone." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The sun lit his features, and she saw in his eyes not just determination, but something warmer, something that made her heart flutter. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for believing in me when no one else did." Owen's gaze lingered on her face. "Some things don't need proof," he said softly. "They're plain to anyone who knows how to look." The dawn broke bright and golden over Willow Creek, but beneath that peaceful light, trouble was brewing. By mid-morning, word spread that Marshal Dawson, accompanied by the county sheriff and an insurance investigator from the next town, had ridden up to the Pullman residence at first light. Folks gathered in the street outside Naomi's shop, whispering in clusters, craning their necks toward the hill where the Pullmans lived. Naomi stood by her window, unable to steady her hands as she tied the same ribbon twice around a bolt of fabric. "What if it isn't enough?" she whispered, pacing the floor. "What if he talks his way out?" Quote. Owen leaned against the doorframe, his hat in his hands. "He can try," he said, "but the truth's got a way of pushing through no matter how deep men try to bury it." Not an hour later, a boy from the telegraph office came running down the street, breathless. "They arrested Mr. Pullman," he shouted. "Marshal Dawson's bringing him in!" Naomi's legs went weak. She gripped the edge of her counter for balance. Owen stepped forward, steadying her with a hand on her shoulder. "It's over," he said gently. By afternoon, everyone in Willow Creek knew the full story. Pullman had confessed. He'd given the money to his son James to cover gambling debts, then filed a false insurance claim to recover the funds, and blamed Naomi to protect both his name and his family's reputation. The same neighbors who had spat her name like poison now came to her door with red faces and nervous apologies. "Such a dreadful misunderstanding," Mrs. Hargrove said, clutching her pearls. "I always told my husband I couldn't believe you'd do such a thing." Quote. Naomi smiled politely, though her heart ached at the falseness of it. "Thank you, Mrs. Hargrove. I'm just grateful the truth came out." By evening, the crowd had thinned. Dr. Parker stopped by with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Justice, Miss Foster," he said, tipping his hat, "took its time, but it found its way." When the last visitor left, Owen returned. He stood quietly in the doorway, watching her tidy up her counter, though there was nothing left to straighten. "You can rest easy now," he said. Naomi turned, a tired but genuine smile touching her lips. "Because of you. I'll never forget what you did for me." Owen shrugged lightly. "You don't owe me anything. I only helped the truth find its feet." "You did more than that," she said softly. "You gave me back my name." The silence between them stretched, filled with something unspoken but deeply understood. Finally, Owen cleared his throat and set his hat back on. "Now that your name's cleared, I'll be heading north in a few days. Thinking about Montana territory. Heard there's open land up there for men willing to build from scratch." The words struck Naomi harder than she expected. "You're leaving?" Owen nodded slowly. "It's time. Wasn't planning on staying long when I came to Willow Creek." Naomi tried to smile, but her chest felt hollow. "Of course. You have your own life to live." He hesitated, his gaze lingering on her face. "I was thinking maybe I'd stay through the Founders' Day celebration. I'd like to see it, after all this trouble." Her heart fluttered with cautious hope. "That's still 2 weeks away." He grinned faintly. "Guess I'll have to find ways to stay busy until then." Those 2 weeks passed faster than Naomi could have imagined. Owen helped repair her roof, built new shelves for her growing fabric stock, and even mended the porch rails she'd been meaning to fix for months. Together, they fell into an easy rhythm, talking, laughing, sharing small silences that said more than words ever could. When Founders' Day finally arrived, the whole town gathered in the square beneath strings of bunting and fluttering flags. The band played cheerful tunes. Children chased ribbons in the breeze, and the smell of apple pie and roasted corn filled the air. Naomi, reinstated as treasurer of the celebration committee, moved among the crowd with her head high. She spotted Owen across the square, talking with Dr. Parker and laughing at something the old man said. The sunlight caught his hair and the clean line of his jaw, and Naomi's breath caught in her throat. He looked completely at home, yet part of her feared he'd still leave when the celebration ended. Mrs. Winters nudged her with a knowing smile. "He's got the look of a man-smitten child," the old woman said. "The only question is whether you'll let him wander off without giving him a reason to stay." As twilight settled over the square, lanterns were lit, and the music slowed to a soft waltz. Owen approached Naomi and bowed slightly. "May I have this dance, Miss Foster?" "You may, Mr. Reed," she replied, placing her hand in his. Under the warm glow of lanterns, they moved together as though they'd been dancing all their lives. Her head rested against his chest, and she could hear the steady beat of his heart. When the music faded, he didn't let go of her hand. "Walk with me," he asked. They left the lights and laughter behind, following the path toward the creek, where the moonlight shimmered on the water. The night was still, the only sound, the chirping of crickets and the gentle rustle of reeds. Owen stopped and turned to her, taking both her hands in his. "Naomi," he said quietly, "I came to Willow Creek expecting to pass through. Just another town, another job, another name I'd forget in a month. But then I met you." Her heart raced as she looked up at him. "And now?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small gold ring, worn smooth by time. "Now I can't imagine leaving without you. There's land in Montana, a place called Promise Valley. A man could build a home there if he had someone worth building it for." Tears filled Naomi's eyes. "Owen." He knelt on one knee beneath the silver light of the moon. "Naomi Foster, will you marry me? Will you come with me to build a home where truth is enough?" She pressed her trembling hands to her lips, tears spilling freely. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Owen Reed, I will." He slipped the ring onto her finger, then rose and kissed her, softly at first, then with the strength of every word they hadn't yet spoken. Weeks later, their wedding took place in Willow Creek's small church. Dr. Parker walked Naomi down the aisle. Mrs. Winters wept openly in the front pew, and even Marshall Dawson looked proud as he watched the couple exchange vows. When they boarded the stagecoach for Montana, the whole town gathered to see them off. The same people who had once called her a thief now waved and cheered, ashamed of how quickly they'd turned against her. The journey north was long and harsh, but Naomi and Owen faced it together. By autumn, they reached the valley Owen had dreamed of, a vast stretch of grassland framed by snow-capped peaks and a river that sparkled in the sun. On a gentle rise, they built their cabin. With his hands in her heart, they created something lasting, a place of safety, of honesty, of love. Over the years, that cabin grew into a home called Truth's Haven, where laughter filled the air and the past no longer cast shadows. Every morning, Naomi would step onto the porch, watching Owen ride across their land, the light of the rising sun touching his broad shoulders. And every evening when he returned, she would greet him with the same warmth as the first time she'd opened her door to him in Willow Creek. The town that once condemned her had taught her the hardest lesson of all. That truth, once buried, will always find a way to rise. And in that truth, she found not only freedom, but love that would last a lifetime.